Okay, so I am Dum Dum, and I let the game audio overpower my voice when I was recording earlier, so that means I have to record everything over again. So let's go ahead. I've been saying for ever since Iansan basically released that I think Xilonen, or that Iansan is better for Mavuika, and it was recently put to the test how true that may have been. So basically, the reason why this video is happening is because it turns out that it's actually harder to get Mavuika's burst than I expected. I was expecting C2 Mavuika, I'm gonna easily be able to always gain her burst, but on the Iansan team, I literally was unable, like on two separate attempts onto a boss, or like two chambers basically back to back. Like I did one chamber and then I did the other chamber, and in both scenarios, Mavuika didn't have her full Night Soul or her full fighting spirit, and that is a big no-no when it comes to using Mavuika, and that definitely hurts Mavuika when she's actually being used. Now let's go ahead. We're at 0 Night Soul here. Literally nothing is helping us get to our limit, right? So if we don't get to the limit here, it's a little probably, you basically would have had to use the burst and not like lose or gain any Night Soul. I don't know how it necessarily works when she uses her burst. You would have had to basically not been using any Night Soul at all to be at this level, so you probably would never truly be at this level because Xilonen on this team is always draining Night Soul, right? So it's a little tough. So let's go ahead and let's just start off with this. This is C2 Mavuika, so yeah, she's gonna really gain up a lot of her power here. And I'm gonna have a screenshot of what it was or what it looked like, right? I'm not gonna, did you just like melt but not melt? What? So yeah, I'm gonna have two screenshots for Mavuika on the Iansan team and the Xilonen team, and we're gonna see what the difference is. And theoretically, I mean, it depends. If Xilonen was at max, then that means she couldn't gain anymore. Whereas, if Iansan isn't at max, that means, she had the extra buff and she still was unable to max this out, right? So we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna wait until all my Night Soul is drained, and we will end up using all of Mavuika's stuff. By the way, I will be using Iansan here first, just so we can make sure to like lose as much Night Soul as possible before we get to Mavuika, and then I will be able to test out and see what we look like. So I'm gonna use the burst here, and then we're gonna just wait it out. Okay, so here we go. Let's see, can Iansan gain our energy back, right? So can she give us our Night Soul, right? So here we go. I'm gonna try and do this as easy and super hopefully good as possible. Her burst ain't even showing. Oh my. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, man. Like, that's tough. Like, this is an extreme example, right? Because like I said at the beginning, Iansan was draining Night Soul right there, like literally right there as we were using the Q. We were draining our Night Soul and it was filling up for this bar. Like, we already have half just from Xilonen and Iansan there, and that is though a little more than you'll get in Abyss, because you will lose all of that in Abyss, right? Kind of. As soon as you hit and kill the enemy, your Night Soul, like draining and all that stuff, it won't be counted anymore. Sadly, that's just the way that it works. It's annoying. There's certain things, like if you try and finish off an enemy with Arlecchino's Q, and it just doesn't heal you. Like, that really is when it hurts really bad. So you use Arlecchino's Q to heal yourself, and then you end up not having any energy, and you finish the enemy, and now you don't even get the healing because you finished the chamber. It's sort of like that, but I mean, you guys saw, like, we were not even close to maxing it out. This is an extreme example, as I've said, but I have gone ahead and I have, looked at, I'll even present you guys with some pictures from like doing Abyss runs with the Iansan team, and you guys will be able to see, like, I am not lying, that it doesn't max out sometimes. Or most of the time, if I'm being entirely honest. If you kill an enemy with your burst, right, and it's not uncommon for like Mavuika to do that. I would say it's not always going to happen, right, but I'm not necessarily the arbiter of like truth when it comes to Mavuika at this point, because I have C2 Mavuika, and if I one rotate something, that might mean that a C0 Mavuika could end up doing 2 rotations, but really the second rotation is just a burst from Mavuika that does 1,000,000 damage and kills the boss. That could legitimately be all that we're looking at here. So yeah, I'm gonna like go ahead, stop recording, and then I'm gonna look back at what the differences were, and it's gonna be pretty shocking, I imagine. So after looking at the footage, it seems like in that situation where there's no fighting spirit, you are basically at 80% with the Iansan team, which massively decreases his damage, just outright. And that's also 80% with the Iansan team, and worse, like, because it's not just 80% with the Iansan team, it's also 80% with the Iansan team at C2, or at C2, but it's the C1 that matters. That's, that is really, really tough. Because, like, we're talking about, I don't think I have to question if you would burst, but you will be very close to not bursting. I know there are people who do not like using Mavuika's E-skill at the beginning of a rotation. If you don't like doing that, you may not burst. Simple as that. Like, I'm pretty confident. Let me make sure I didn't mess up or anything, and we did end up using the E-skill for Mavuika. Yeah, we did. That's not confidence inspiring. And it is important to know the only thing that would change here, right? The only thing that you can change is a little bit of Night Soul from her C4. Legitimately, a little bit of Night Soul from her C4. It's a little bit, but it's like 10 or 16-ish. I don't know what exactly, because it says Iansan will gain 2 stacks of this thing, and it gives you a 4 Night Soul, which means it probably is around 8. So it's not a huge amount, if we're being entirely honest. It really wouldn't change the way that I feel on this, but yeah. So it's a more extreme example. Like I said, I probably have shown you images of other runs with the Iansan team where we were not maxing out our Night Soul, and if I'm not maxing out my Night Soul, that means you guys really aren't maxing out your Night Soul. And that really leaves Iansan to kind of be like, well, if you can run her, you can get the, extra little bit of damage boost, but do you want to? Like, do you want to have that situation where the second chamber you do, Mavuika could do a lot worse, like by far a lot worse? Or do you want to run Xilonen? You take a little bit of a peak, like your peak will go down, but like overall you'll stay the same, right? Personally, I will be taking Xilonen, and I will be recommending Xilonen. I will be saying that Xilonen is the best team now, because I wrote this off as something as I will never see it because my Mavuika is C2. I legitimately was like, oh, I'll never see this issue because my Mavuika is C2. Now, it's important to know I'm not saying Iansan is bad. You want to know what you can do and just use Iansan on the team still? Just get rid of Bennett, right? Like, this is not to say Iansan is bad, but saying Mavuika's best team is this, I think you're really missing the huge trade-off of, like, possibly what Mavuika has the issue of, right? There's a major issue of Mavuika front-loading her damage, and this is one of the reasons why people don't like their front-loaded damage is because, well, Raiden's big slash, you don't gain enough energy, right? If you kill the enemy with Raiden's huge slash when she uses her Q, you don't, like, gain enough energy, basically. And it sort of feels the same. It's that same sort of thing. However, Xilonen fixes that entirely. So you're adding a flaw to the team if you run Bennett and Iansan for, like, 5% more damage. And the reason why I say 5% more damage is because we can go ahead and we can look at my Mavuika. Let's go ahead. I want to see my Mavuika. Okay, so I just realized something. Even Xilonen, because I wasn't on, like, sure. I just realized Mavuika has, like, a star at the top of her burst when it's full. Yeah, and also a completely different effect, yeah. So Xilonen didn't even get it to full. But, like, again, like I said, you typically will not see even, like, full 0 because Xilolen will still be draining Night Soul as we, go ahead and, fight and stuff. And also Mavuika will be, well, no, Mavuika doesn't drain Night Soul because once you press your Q, it stays still. But it's it's there. But you can see even Xilonen didn't. So you can kind of, there is, like, a tangible result of, like, this is how much better Xilonen does. But then again, I think the tangible result is kind of a little skewed because I think by having it be 25% extra that I'm getting per Night Soul point, this team, like, technically this Xilonen and then the Iansan team are technically disparaged a little bit, 25% more. So, like, theoretically, the gap is a little smaller than what it seems like in the 2 images that I have. So, but Xilonen does give more and will, from my experience, will always give you, 100%, like 200% Night Soul. And also, you could just use Iansan instead of Bennett, and then you will definitely have max Night Soul. But let's go ahead And let's see what my Mavuika's attack, so I can show you guys what this is. So we're gonna show this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. All right, come on, let's go. All right, boom, and 6,205. Now it's important to note my C2 Xilonen is giving 585 attack. So my C2 Xilonen is giving less than a 10% damage buff to my Mavuika here. That's it. That's legitimately less than 10% damage buff. Like, it doesn't matter which one of these teams are better. They are so insignificantly tiny. Now, Mavuika does a lot of damage, right? So it matters. Like, even a 10%, less than 10%, that's like 500,000 damage on a Mavuika team at C2 level. But, you know, like, I just want to point out, like, Mavuika, it's not that big of an increase to have Iansan at E6, or C6, not E6, but C6 Iansan over Xilonen to begin with, honestly. It really isn't. And I'm not going to count my weapon, because I compare characters with their weapon. Iansan's running a 5-star weapon, so if I discounted, you know, Xilonen having a 5-star weapon, let's be real. Come on, shut up. So like, overall, yeah, I would say Xilonen team is better. I like it more for consistency, but, you know, technically, this isn't even the personal team that I use anymore. I use Iansan here instead of Bennett. But if we were to decide which, you know, Xilonen or Iansan, like, which one do I put on this team? Because I love running Bennett, you know, whatever. Yeah, basically, I would go with Xilonen, because Xilonen, to me, seems very strong and, you know, better on this team. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.